Hi, welcome to another video tutorial on the web application NetChecklist.com. In this video I'm going to talk about setting up and managing projects within the application. So in the context of this application, a project is something that you're working on, or someone or some organization that you're doing work for. This application does not define a project in the same way that people in the project management world define it. The project management field basically defines a project as something that's not a part of an organization's standard operations. So according to their definition, building a home would not be a project for a home building company because that would be a part of their standard ongoing business operations. A true project for them would be something like implementing a new accounting system. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that definition. It's just not how the term project is used in this application. In this application, building a home would definitely be a project for a home builder, and that's actually exactly the type of project that this application is designed to help with. The whole purpose of this application is for managing normal business operations. So a project in this application can be something that you start and finish, like building a home, but it can also be something that's ongoing, like for an accounting firm, a project could be a client that they do work for year after year on an ongoing basis. A project is just simply a way to separate the different things that you're working on. So here we are again, logged in as our fictional user, Bob Broker, and like everything else in this application, all projects must belong to an organization. So before we can do anything with projects, we have to go into one of the organizations that Bob is a member of. So let's go into this one here just by simply clicking on it. So now that we're working in an organization, this is our fictitious real estate organization, we can get to our projects by going to the org setup and coming down to the projects page. So over here on the left side of the page, we see we already have a form where we can add a new project. So all we would have to do to create a new project is just type the name of the project here and then click the add project button to save it. Over here on the right side of the screen, we see a list of all of the active projects that already belong to this organization. So we can edit any one of those by simply clicking on it to select it. And notice that once one is selected, its button over here shows up slightly darker to indicate it's the one that is selected. So here you could change the name of the project, you could make it inactive, you could enter any project notes, and again, once you've made any changes, you would need to click this button in order to save your changes. Now, finally down here at the bottom of the page, you may or may not have a button that would allow you to delete the current project. Here this one does not, but if we come over here, this one does. And if you do have that button, then it does exactly what you would think it does. It just deletes that project. But if we come back over to this one that does not have the button, we don't have the button, but we do have an explanation, and let's read this. It says, you cannot delete the current project because it is referenced in tasks, recurring tasks, checklists copied, or recurring checklists that exist in the database. You would have to delete all of these before you could delete the project, or alternatively, you can just make the project inactive to hide it. So again, that's up here. Here you can make a project inactive. That is the entire purpose of that. If you make a project inactive, then it will not show up in this list. But you can go back if you want to see them. Here, our list says, ask if we want to display inactive projects. It currently says no. Let's change that to yes and say update list. And here we see an additional one that was not showing up before. It is inactive. It shows right there that it is. If we click on it, we see over here under inactive it says yes. And also notice here that not only can we see it up here from this menu, but also now this says inactive, active and inactive projects. If we change that to no, it says active projects only. If a project is inactive, then not only does it not show up here, but it also doesn't show up in the other menus in the application where you have to select a project name. I'll show you an example. If we were going to make a copy, let's look again real quick, make sure you understand. Okay, Sunnydale is the one that's inactive, and if we come over here to make a copy of a checklist, and this is where we select the project that we want to copy it for, you notice that Sunnydale does not show up here, and that's because it is inactive. Let's go back over to our projects page. So when we were here before, you may have noticed this project here called No Particular Project. And in this application, all of the tasks that you create must be assigned to a project that belongs to the organization. And of course, most organizations are going to have at least some types of tasks that don't specifically apply to any of the other projects they're working on, things like general accounting or marketing tasks or things like that. So whenever a new organization is created in the application, the system automatically creates for you a catch-all project for the new organization called No Particular Project for those general, non-project specific types of tasks to be assigned to. Now, if you don't like that name, you can certainly change it to whatever you prefer, and you could also delete it. It's according to the same rules as the other one. If it's never been used, you could delete it, or you could mark it inactive. Now, I just put that little asterisk in space at the beginning of it because that makes it show up at the very beginning of the list. So these items show up in alphabetical order. So rather than having to hunt for it, it kind of, to me, is nice to have it at the top of the list. But again, if you don't like that, you can definitely change it. So let's talk for one more minute about the projects that you're done working with and this delete button or inactive. And let's go again. Remember this one right here? This is the one that we cannot delete, the Anywhere Drive. And I know I haven't showed you the checklist copied page yet if you're going in order. But let's go to that page, and I'm going to make a small change here. I'll explain this later. And notice here that this is a copy of a checklist that exists in the database for this fictitious organization. It is for 123 Anywhere Drive, and you can see that all of the tasks for this have been completed, although in our case that doesn't make a difference. So this, the existence of this actually is the reason why we cannot delete that particular project. Now, we could use this link here to delete this copy and all of its items. And if this was the only thing keeping us from deleting that, then we would then be able to delete it. But remember that there could also be several other things that could exist in the database, several other types of things, as well as several other copies of checklists. If you use it a lot, you'll have a whole bunch of these listed here. So, again, if you're done working with a project and you don't have the delete button where you can delete it, the easiest thing is just to make it inactive. Now, I guess there technically is one other alternative to marking a project inactive or deleting it, and this is one that I don't recommend you use, but I will show you real quick. Make a quick mental note here that this project does say that 123 Anywhere Drive. So let's come back over to our org setup page, and, to our projects page. And let's say instead of deleting that, because see we can't delete it, let's say we say, well, I'll just rename that to the name of a new project and reuse it, and just reuse it. So I'm going to change the name to new. So I've changed that here. And so now I can just use that same one for my new projects. The problem with doing that is now if we come over to that checklists copied page, and here's that same one, the project name now shows 123 new, which is clearly misleading. This is the same one that was there before, but if anyone looked back at this, they would think that this checklist was copied and completed for that new project, which it wasn't. So that's why I don't think that simply renaming those projects is a good idea. So just mark them inactive. So that's what you need to understand about working with projects in the application.